The house was already sold. Not listed. Not pending. Sold. Contract signed. Buyer locked in. Escrow counting down the hours like a bomb timer. I was standing in my empty living room, boxes stacked to the ceiling, when my phone rang. It was my realtor. She didn't say hello. She said, "Don't panic." But the HOA just froze the closing. That sentence hit harder than any fine ever could. I asked why. She hesitated, then said it slowly, like she didn't want to repeat it out loud. They added a new fee, almost $10,000. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was insane. I had lived in that house for years, paid every due, every assessment, never late, never fined. And now, 48 hours before closing, they suddenly remembered a fee? The email arrived seconds later. Subject line, urgent, HOA transfer compliance requirement. Inside was a single paragraph explaining that before the property could legally change hands, I was required to pay a special transfer compliance and community impact fee, $9,750, due immediately. No payment equals no sale. The buyer's lender wouldn't release funds. Escrow wouldn't proceed. The buyer could legally walk away. The HOA knew this. That's what made it evil. This wasn't a rule. This was leverage. Most sellers at this stage are trapped. You've already mentally moved out. Your next place is lined up. Your buyer is nervous. Paying feels easier than fighting. That's exactly what they were counting on. I asked my realtor one question. Where was this fee when I bought the house? She checked the disclosures. Nothing. HOA bylaws? Nothing. State resale packet? Nothing. It didn't exist, which meant one thing. They weren't enforcing policy. They were inventing pressure. I emailed the HOA management company directly. Please provide the bylaw, vote record, or legal authority that authorizes this transfer fee. Their reply came fast, too fast. That's when I knew this wasn't the first time. They sent a PDF. 1 page. No letterhead. No board signatures. No policy number. Just a bold title and a dollar amount. That's it. I read it 3 times, hoping I'd miss something. I hadn't. It was the kind of document you could create in Word in under 5 minutes. I replied again, this time CCing escrow. This document does not appear in governing documents. Please cite the specific section authorizing this fee. The tone changed immediately. The HOA president herself replied, not professional, not careful, defensive. This is a standard fee. Everyone pays it. If you delay, you risk losing your buyer. That sentence told me everything. She wasn't explaining legality. She was threatening consequences. I called my escrow officer. She sighed and said quietly, I've seen this before. Some HOAs try to slip fees in at closing because sellers panic. I asked her the real question. Is this legal? She paused, then said, if it's not in the bylaws or disclosed up front, no. But most people don't fight. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared. Because I was angry. Angry that this works on people. Angry that someone probably paid this last week just to save a deal. Angry that they thought I'd do the same. At 2:17 a.m., I opened my laptop and started pulling records. HOA budgets, meeting minutes, annual reports, and that's when I saw it. A line item buried deep in last year's budget. Miscellaneous, transfer adjustments, $61,400. No explanation, no breakdown, just money. I smiled for first time, because now I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a system that BY morning. The anger had settled into something colder, not calmer, sharper. The kind of focus you get when you realize you're not just being pushed, you're being tested. I hadn't slept more than an hour. The house smelled like burnt coffee and cardboard. My phone sat face down on the counter, buzzing every few minutes like a trapped insect. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The HOA didn't panic quietly. They panicked loudly. At 7:12 a.m., I finally flipped the phone over. 9 missed calls, 4 voicemails, 3 emails marked urgent, all from the same name, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I listened to the first voicemail on speaker. Her voice was tight, clipped, trying and failing to sound authoritative. "You are causing unnecessary complications. This matter can still be resolved privately if you cooperate." Privately. That word again. I deleted it without replying. The second voicemail wasn't as controlled. "You're making a mistake. Escrow delays fall on you, not us. You're playing a dangerous game." By the third message, the mask was slipping. "Call me back. Now." No greeting. No professionalism. Just command. I smiled for the first time since this started, because now I knew something important. They weren't confident anymore. At 9:03 a.m., my realtor called. Her voice was strained. "Karen wants a meeting. In person. She says it's mandatory." I laughed. "Mandatory for who?" "She's insisting the fee stands. She's threatening to block the resale certification entirely." That was a nuclear option. Without that certification, the sale legally couldn't close. Lenders wouldn't touch it. Buyers would walk. Deals would collapse. This wasn't bluff territory anymore. This was open warfare. "Tell her I'll meet," I said, "today, at the HOA office." There was a pause. Then, "Are you sure?" I looked around the empty house. The boxes, the stripped walls, the faint outlines where furniture used to be. "Oh, yeah," I said. I'm done letting her hide behind emails. The HOA office was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, framed community values posters, a fake plant dying in the corner, and behind a large, polished desk sat Karen Whitmore. 50, maybe early 50s. Blonde hair pulled so tight into a bun it looked painful. Red blazer, white blouse, gold necklace, power costume. She didn't stand when I walked in, didn't offer a handshake. She just looked me up and down and said flatly, "You're late." I checked my watch. "I'm on time." She scoffed. "Sit." I didn't. That threw her. People like Karen are used to small rituals of obedience. Sitting when told, waiting to be acknowledged, lowering your voice. I did none of it. "I want to be very clear," she said, folding her hands. "This fee is not optional." I stepped closer to the desk. "Then show me where it exists." Her smile was thin, brittle. "It's a board-approved transfer assessment. Approve when." She opened a folder and slid a paper toward me. No signatures, no dates, no vote record, just a heading and a dollar amount. I laughed out loud. That did it. Her face flushed red. "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "No," I said calmly. "I think it's sloppy." She shot up from her chair. "Watch your tone." I leaned forward, palms flat on her desk. "Watch your bylaws." For a split second, I saw in her eyes fear. The mask comes off. Karen straightened, took a breath, and switched tactics. "You're jeopardizing your own sale," she said, lowering her voice. "Buyers don't like complications. Neither do lenders. So you're admitting this fee is leverage." Her lips tightened. "I'm saying cooperation makes things easier." "For who?" "For everyone." "No," I said. "For you." She slammed her hand on the desk. "I run this association." There it was. Not we, not the board. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the desk between us. "Then you won't mind if I record the rest of this conversation." Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." "I can," I replied. Single-party consent state. Her mouth opened, closed. She sat back down slowly. "Turn it off," she said. "No." The silence stretched. Then she leaned forward, voice sharp and venomous. "If you don't pay this fee, I will personally ensure your resale certification never gets approved." There was no ambiguity now, no polite phrasing, no deniability, just a threat. I nodded. "Great," I said. "That's exactly what I needed." She blinked. "What?" I picked up my phone. "Thank you for saying that out loud." Her face went pale. Escalation. I left the office without another word. Didn't slam the door. Didn't argue. Just walked out. Behind me, Karen was already yelling. I heard it through the glass. Get back here. You don't walk out on me. I didn't turn around because I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. The lawyer. By noon, I was sitting in a downtown office across from a real estate litigation attorney named Mark Ellis. Mid-40s. Calm. Sharp eyes. He listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. The fee. The timing. The threats. The recording. When I finished, he leaned back and smiled. Well, he said, this is messy. Bad for me? I asked. No, he replied. Bad for them. He tapped the desk. You've got attempted interference with contract, coercion, possibly fraud, and if she threatened to block certification without legal cause. He whistled softly. That's not an HOA issue. That's a regulatory nightmare. I exhaled for the first time all day. So what now? He leaned forward. Now we apply pressure. Karen loses control. At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang again. Karen. I answered. What? I said. She didn't bother pretending anymore. You went to a lawyer? Yes. You think this scares us? I think it terrifies you. She raised her voice. You are not going to bully this association. I laughed. That's rich. You don't understand how this works, she snapped. I've stopped sales before. People fold. People without records. I said, without recordings, without lawyers. Her breathing was heavy now. You're making enemies. No, I replied. I'm exposing them. She screamed, actually screamed. You arrogant little. I hung up. The turning point. By evening, the emails started coming in rapid succession. Different tone now. More people CC'd. Board members, management company reps, legal departments. The language softened. Clarification. Miscommunication. Temporary hold. Too late. Once pressure reaches that stage, it's already cracking something underneath. I opened my laptop and pulled up the HOA financials again. The $61,400 line item stared back at me. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was confirming. And that's when I decided this wasn't just about my sale. This was bigger. Because if they'd tried this on me, loud, stubborn, documented me, they'd absolutely done it to quieter people. People who just wanted to move. People who paid to make the stress stop. I opened a new document and started writing that I didn't post anything that night. That decision mattered more than I realized at the time. People assume exposure starts with noise, screenshots, rants, outrage. But real leverage comes from sequence, not volume. You don't detonate the bomb the moment you build it. You wire it. You test it. You wait until everyone who needs to hear the click hears it. Karen didn't understand that. She thought silence meant fear. The board turns uneasy. At 8:06 p.m., an unfamiliar email addressed at my inbox. Subject: clarification regarding transfer fee. It wasn't from Karen. It was from Tom Alvarez, HOA treasurer. The tone was noticeably different. Measured, cautious, almost apologetic. We've been made aware of concerns regarding a transfer-related assessment. The board is reviewing the matter to ensure compliance with governing documents and state regulations. Translation: someone asked questions Karen couldn't answer. I replied once. Short, precise. I welcome the review. Please include the recorded threat to block resale certification without legal authority. 10 minutes later, Tom replied again. We were not aware of any such statement. Of course they weren't. Karen didn't rule by consensus. She ruled by pressure and assumption, by making people think the rules existed even when they didn't. But now the assumptions were breaking down. I found out later what happened that night. Karen had called an emergency board meeting. Not scheduled, not noticed. Emergency. She stood at the head of the conference table, red blazer discarded, sleeves rolled up like she was preparing for battle. The other board members sat stiffly, exchanging looks they'd never dared exchange before. Tom cleared his throat. Karen, he said, we need documentation for this fee. She waved him off. We've done this before. When another member asked, she snapped her head toward them. Don't challenge me. Silence fell. That silence was new. Then Tom spoke again. We're being asked for statutory authority, not precedent. Karen slammed her palm on the table. I said it's valid. But the room had shifted, because yelling doesn't work once doubt enters. One member leaned back and crossed her arms. If it's valid, she said, why wasn't disclosed? Karen's voice rose. Because sellers panic less if. She stopped herself. Too late. The words hung there. Panic. Tom stared at her. Karen, what did you just say? She turned sharp. You're twisting my words. No, he replied quietly. You're confirming them. My lawyer applies pressure. The next morning, Mark sent the first formal notice. Not aggressive, not threatening, clinical. It outlined interference with contract, coercive financial demand, failure to disclose material fees, abuse of certification authority. It ended with one sentence. Please preserve all communications, recordings, and financial records related to transfer assessments, as litigation and regulatory review are now reasonably anticipated. That sentence is poison, because once it said, destruction of records becomes its own crime. Karen received it at 9:41 a.m. She called me at 9:43. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking now. This has gone too far. We can still fix this. Fix, not resolve. Fix. At 10:02 a.m., my realtor forwarded an internal HOA message that had accidentally included her. Karen had written, do not respond to homeowner inquiries about transfer fees. Refer all communication to me. That was another mistake, because now it wasn't just my word. It was pattern. The breaking phone call. At noon, Karen showed up at my house. Unannounced. I saw her car through the window, idling aggressively at the curb like it was offended to be parked on a public street. She didn't knock. She pounded. I opened the door and stepped outside, closing it behind me. Her face was tight. Makeup rushed. Hair still in its severe bun, but loose strands had escaped. You're enjoying this, she hissed. I folded my arms. You threatened my sale. You provoked me. No, I replied. You assume compliance. She took a step closer. You're ruining this association. I leaned in just enough to make my point clear. You did that the moment you decided panic was a revenue model. She flinched, just slightly. That was when I knew she was losing control, not just of the board, but of herself. You think you're smarter than everyone, she said. You think the law protects you. It does, I replied. That's why you're sweating. She raised her voice. You will regret humiliating me. I held up my phone, still recording. She froze. Then she turned and walked back to her car without another word. Her tires squealed as she pulled away. The pattern emerges. That afternoon, Mark forwarded something unexpected. Another homeowner had contacted him. Different street, different year, same fee, $12,300. Paid at closing. No disclosure. No explanation. The homeowner had found Mark through a casual mention in a local forum. Someone saying, talk to this guy. He's dealing with the HOA transfer fee thing. That was all it took. By 6 p.m., there were 4. By midnight, 7. Different amounts. Same timing. Same pressure. Karen's system wasn't just unethical. It was scalable. The board revolts. At 11:18 p.m., Tom emailed me again, not as treasurer, as a person. Off the record, Karen has not been transparent with the board. Several of us were unaware of the scope of these fees. I believe she exceeded her authority. I replied honestly, then you're already late, but not too late to stop it. He didn't reply, but he forwarded something. Meeting minutes. Unedited. There it was. A discussion of transfer adjustments with no recorded vote. Just Karen's summary. That was the crack becoming a fracture. Karen's last attempt at control. At 2:04 a.m., she sent one final email. Not to me, to everyone. Board, management, legal, subject. Immediate damage control required. She claimed misinterpretation, clerical error, Temporary suspension of the fee. What she didn't do was deny the threats. She couldn't because I had the recording. And now, so did my lawyer. The moment everything changed. I sat alone in the empty house, laptop open, boxes untouched. I had everything I needed. Evidence, witnesses, pattern. I open Reddit, not to rant, to ask a question. I typed carefully, neutrally, no insults, no exaggeration, just facts. I didn't post yet. I hovered over the button, because once it went live, there was no going back. This would stop being a private fight. It would become public accountability. I clicked Save Draft, not Post, not yet, because Part 4 wasn't about anger. It was about exposure. And exposure works best when the target thinks they still have time. All right, starting Part 4 now. This is a public detonation phase. Exposure, humiliation, and irreversible loss of control. Fire Part 4. The internet is not a boardroom. I posted it at 7:12 a.m. Not because it was early, because it was deliberate. Morning posts live longer. They catch commuters, coffee drinkers, people procrastinating before work. They spread slowly at first, then all at once. That's how outrage works online. It needs just enough time to breathe before it ignites. The title was calm, almost boring. HOA demanded undisclosed transfer fee at closing. Is this legal? No accusations, no names, just a question. That was mistake number one for Karen. Because people don't trust rage. They trust receipts. The post that wouldn't stay quiet. I laid it out cleanly. HOA demanded $9,750 2 days before closing. Fee not disclosed in bylaws or resale packet. HOA president threatened to block resale certification. Audio recording exists. Lawyer involved. Then I attached 3 things. Screenshot of the email. Screenshot of the invoice. Redacted transcript of the recorded threat. I hit post. I closed my laptop. And I went to make coffee. When I came back 20 minutes later, the post had 87 comments. By the time the coffee cooled, it had 300. The pattern goes public. The first replies were predictable. HOAs are the worst. This sounds illegal. Lawyer up. Then something shifted. A comment appeared halfway down the thread. Wait, my HOA charged something similar when I sold last year. Another followed. Same here. Different amount, but same excuse. Another. Holy sh*t. This is our HOA. That's when the thread stopped being a story. It became a database. People started posting. Addresses. Years. Amounts. Screenshots. Different homes. Same association. Same president. Karen. Karen finds out. She didn't call me this time. She called everyone else. Board members. Management company. The HOA attorney. She sent frantic emails marked urgent and confidential, demanding takedowns, threatening defamation claims, insisting the post was misleading. But there's a problem with the internet. You can't unring a bell, and you definitely can't threaten thousands of anonymous users. By noon, the post had crossed into other subreddits. By 2 p.m., it was trending locally. By 4 p.m., a journalist commented, "Hi, I'm a housing reporter. Can you DM me?" The board breaks ranks. At 5:27 p.m., Tom called me. Not emailed. Called. His voice was low. "This is bigger than we thought." I didn't respond. He continued. "The board didn't authorize this fee. We didn't even know the totals." I let that hang. Then I said, "You're going to need your own lawyer." He swallowed. "I think you're right." That call mattered, because boards survive scandals by presenting unity. The moment one member fractures, the illusion collapses. The emergency meeting from hell. That night, Karen convened another emergency meeting. This time it was official. Notice sent. Minutes recorded. She arrived furious. Eyes wild. Hands shaking. She tried to control the room the way she always had. Volume, intimidation, urgency. But something was different. Everyone had seen the post. Everyone had read the comments. Everyone knew the numbers. Tom spoke first. We need to suspend Karen's authority over financial enforcement immediately. Her head snapped toward him. You don't have that power. Another member spoke. We do collectively. Karen laughed, sharp and panicked. You think Reddit decides our policies now? No, Tom said. The law does. That was when she exploded. You're all cowards, she shouted. I protected this association. Silence answered her. Then someone said the word she feared most. Audit. Media gets involved. The article went live the next morning. Headline: Homeowners allege HOA president collected undisclosed fees at closing. Karen's name was printed. Not accused, not convicted, just associated. That's worse. The article quoted, my lawyer, 2 former homeowners, a housing law expert. It ended with, state regulators confirmed they're reviewing the matter. Karen's phone didn't stop ringing. Neither did mine. But there was a difference. Her calls were panicked. Mine were curious. Karen confronts me one last time. She showed up again. This time, she looked smaller. Same red blazer. Same bun. But the confidence was gone. This has to stop, she said, voice cracking. You're destroying my life. I didn't raise my voice. You destroyed your own authority the moment you monetized fear. She stepped closer. You could delete the post. I shook my head. It's not mine anymore. Her eyes filled with tears, not regret but loss of control. You think you've won, she whispered. I looked at her carefully. No, I said, I think you're about to understand consequences. She left without another word. Regulators knock. 3 days later, certified letters arrived. For her, State Real Estate Board, Consumer Protection Agency, Attorney General's Office, requests for financial records, bank statements, correspondence, authority documentation. Karen didn't have answers because she never expected questions. The HOA collapses internally. The management company resigned. The HOA attorney withdrew. Board members demanded Karen step down temporarily. She refused. They voted anyway. The motion passed. Karen was removed as president effective immediately. She sat silent as it happened. No speech. No protest. Just a woman staring at the table where she once ruled. And me? My house sold. On time. No fee. No interference. But this wasn't over. Because Part 5 isn't about victory. It's about aftermath. Money returned. Lawsuits filed. Reputations erased. And the final realization Karen never escaped. Power taken quietly is always lost loudly. Karen disappeared for 3 days. No emails. No statements. No damage control interviews. For a woman who had built her authority on constant presence. Meetings, memos, warnings taped to doors. Her absence felt unnatural. Like a storm cloud that had suddenly collapsed into nothing. But systems don't forget. And neither do records. The refund letters. The first refunds didn't come from the HOA. They came from escrow companies. One homeowner posted an update under my original thread. Got a call today. They're reviewing my closing from 2022. Might be a refund. Another followed. Same. They asked if I still had my settlement statement. By the end of the week, a pattern emerged. People weren't asking if they were owed money anymore. They were asking how much. Mark forwarded me an internal memo from the HOA's new interim counsel. Preliminary review indicates unauthorized collection of transfer-related fees exceeding $240,000 over a 4-year period. $240,000. Collected quietly. Dispersed inconsistently. Never approved. Karen didn't just abuse authority. She monetized it. The lawsuits stack up. The first lawsuit was civil, filed by 3 former homeowners as a group. The second was individual. The third named Karen personally. Then came the class action inquiry. That's when the tone changed. Because class actions don't ask if something went wrong. They ask how far it spread. Karen's personal attorney tried to argue she had acted in good faith. That defense died the moment discovery began. Emails surfaced. Internal notes. One message stood out. If we don't mention it, most sellers won't fight it. Good faith doesn't sound like that. The board tries to survive. The HOA issued a statement, carefully worded. They express regret, promise structural reform, and announce a full forensic audit. They also announce a special assessment, not to fund operations, but to repay homeowners. Irony has a sense of humor. Residents were furious. Meetings turned hostile. The board members who had stayed silent for years were suddenly expected to explain why. Most couldn't. Several resigned. Karen's fall from public view. A reporter tried to get a comment from Karen. She declined. Another tried again. No response. Her social media went private. Her LinkedIn headline changed from HOA president to nothing at all. She wasn't arrested. She wasn't dragged off in handcuffs. Something worse happened. She became irrelevant. The final hearing. The state hearing was short, efficient, unemotional. Karen sat with her attorney, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. She didn't argue. She didn't offend. She listened as findings were read into record. Unauthorized fee collection, abuse of certification authority, failure of fiduciary duty, misrepresentation. The penalty wasn't dramatic. It was precise. Permanent ban from serving on any HOA board in state. Personal financial liability. Mandatory restitution. The judge looked at her once before closing the session. Authority, he said, is not ownership. She nodded, not because she agreed, but because there was nothing left to say. The house revisited. Months later, I drove past my old street. Different season, different energy. New board, new signs. No warning notices taped to doors. No threats disguised as policy. The house I'd sold was quiet, occupied, normal. That mattered more than I expected. The thread lives on. The Reddit post is still there. Locked now. Archived. People still message me occasionally. Different states. Different HOAs. Same story. Power doesn't corrupt instantly. It corrupts quietly in places people stop paying attention. Until someone asks a simple question. The last thing Karen learned. Karen never apologized publicly. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any statement. Because the truth about people like her isn't that they're villains. It's that they mistake compliance for respect. And once that illusion breaks, there is no coming back. She tried to take money at closing. Instead, she paid with everything she thought made her untouchable.